My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. All right, I love this video. I am going to report back to you in this video about how I spent my budget in April. It's so fun to tell you guys what I bought, and I don't know, I'm reminded now that I always think that this is going to be kind of a quick and dirty video because I imagine myself just sitting down and listing the things off and being like, here's what I bought, and here's how much it cost, and here's how much I had left over, the end. But then I end up going extensively into all my feelings and my reasoning surrounding buying everything and reviewing everything. In the continuing saga of construction outside of the front of our building, they've put metal plates on the road to cover some pipes, and it's one of those things where every time a car goes by, it goes clunk, 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 clunk. I don't know, if you have a clunk, clunk phobia, maybe you should click out of this video. I think that that's all I had to say in the intro. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So my starting budget in April was a whopping $344.25. That is because I didn't spend my whole budget in February, and then I didn't spend my whole budget in March. And the way that my budget works is that it rolls over. It's $200 a month, by the way. If you don't know that, if this is like my first video that you've ever seen for some reason, like, is anyone out there clicking on me for the first time and this is what you're seeing? Goodness gracious. Anyway, if you want the background, then click on what I'll put in the cards right now, which is my intro video to this project, my first video of 2019. So money rolled over, and I started out with $344.25, and I spent most of it. I think I actually held out for a week or two, like without really buying anything. But I kind of knew. I knew that I had a few staple items that I wanted to get from Sephora, and I had been sampling them for a really long time to make sure that they were the right ones. I had a couple of clothing items I needed, holes in my wardrobe that were true holes. And I kind of just knew after about a week of sitting on this $344.25, I was like, we're doing it. I'm going to fill these holes. I'm going to fill the holes in my makeup collection and in my wardrobe, and I'm going to do it freely because I have this budget. This is what the budget is for, and I'm going to do it happily. I'm going to do it with joy. However, the first thing that happened was an unexpected beauty budget expense. I went to a party with my friend Lauren from the channel Lauren May Beauty. No. Are you here for permanent? Okay, so Joe just unexpectedly came home. So he's gonna do all his little Joe things, and it will probably be noisy, but we're already dealing with the noise from the trucks on the metal plates outside, so it'll be okay. Anyway, what were we just talking about? Oh yeah, so at the party they had a woman doing piercings, free piercings. It was like one of the perks of going to the party, one of the treats that you could get at the party was a piercing. So we got in line to do the piercings, and when I got up to the front, I asked her if I could have two. I got these two cartilage piercings, and she said yes, but there's a fee for the second one because the party had paid for everyone to have one free piece of jewelry and one free piercing. And since I was asking for a second piercing, and I think more to the point, a second piece of jewelry because she was like giving away the jewelry, she just asked me to cover the cost of that second ring. So I did. I spent $35 of my beauty budget on one of the two rings that I got my ears pierced with. And it was a last minute decision, which was really unusual. Usually with my budget, I like plan for a really long time and I go back and forth and I'm like, is it worth it? And I stack it up against all the other things I want. But in this case, I was like, oh, okay, I'll buy it. But I was aware in that moment that it was going to have to come out of my beauty budget because it's the very definition of the kind of thing that I have to pay for with my budget. And the thing that it occurred to me to tell you about that is that primarily that experience was a social experience. I was with Lauren, I was at this party, I was having fun, I was bonding with my friend, I was meeting new people, and I was very grateful to have set aside money to be able to participate in an aspect of that experience that cost money. You can be in the video if you want. And I actually remember having that thought in that moment. I just remember thinking, this is what this money is for, and just being so grateful that I have money set aside that I can use in those situations, that I was able to participate and be festive. Not like Lauren would have cared if I had been like, I'm only getting one piercing because I don't want to pay for the second one with my beauty budget. I mean, it's not like it would have necessarily made the experience less valuable at all, really. I mean, I guess it was valuable to get a second piercing, but all I'm trying to say is that I had an appreciation in that moment for the choice to use my beauty budget for an experience with friends. I purchased 3 items of clothing this month, which just felt like so much to me. And I love buying clothes, but it's historically been a huge problem for me. So I really put the brakes on during my no-buy year, and I've kind of kept the brakes on so far this year. I've kind of been pumping the brakes. I've been like really, really careful about tiptoeing back into the world of buying lovely brand new clothing for myself. So 3 at once felt like I was really jumping in. And it took me a while to decide what I wanted. I mentioned in my video about the check-in, I think it was my check-in video, I mentioned that I realized that I really did want to choose and invest in some summer tops, because when we moved and I kind of packed up my closet and then reestablished my closet here, I realized that I had not just weeded out my summer tops from my closet, but I had really decluttered almost all of them in my big clothing declutter. Almost all of them. Like, I just didn't have any plain classic flattering t-shirts, for example. I had had a couple last summer, some linen t-shirts. I think I had had 3. And I had worn them all completely to shreds, and all of them had been secondhand to begin with. So they had had a little bit of wear and tear before they even got to me. So I didn't have any. I didn't have a single plain white t-shirt. Spoiler alert, this is one of the ones that I bought. I'm wearing it for the video. So I went on kind of a mission to start to rebuild my collection of tops. And it wasn't a matter of like having space in my drawer and wanting to fill the space. It was a matter of genuinely having a gaping hole in my collection, my summer wardrobe specifically, as we started to go into summer. So I picked 2 tops. This is one of them. I'm going to stand up so you can see that it's cropped. It is super cute. It's very, very soft, lightweight jersey knit. And I got it from Aritzia. Obviously, I will link it. I'll link everything that I talk about in this video down below. So this was one. I also got another top from Aritzia, and it's the top that I was wearing in my favorites video. So it's a black tank top. I'm not sure if you were able to see in that video, but it ties. It's also a crop, and it has like a little tie right above the belly button, or kind of right at the natural waist. And then the third item of clothing that I bought, probably the most exciting, is a dress. And I have worn that in a video already. I wore it in my check-in. And a lot of you thought it was a blouse. A lot of you referenced it in the comments and you thought it was a blouse, but I did link it in that video. It is a linen shift dress with 3/4 length sleeves and a V-neck and pockets, and I bought it from an Etsy seller. I will talk more about the seller from which I purchased that dress in my upcoming video about where my money went this past month. So it will be my report on the ethics of the various companies that each got a piece of my budget over the course of the month of April. But needless to say, the Etsy seller that I bought it from is one woman. She lives in China and she makes the dresses by hand and she sells them on Etsy. So I will link her shop down below. I believe it's called Hodu Story, and it's a little Etsy shop, and I'll link specifically the piece that I bought, but she has a bunch of dresses in a similar vein. Very beautiful and easy to wear, very size versatile and size accommodating. And I purchased that dress because, again, I felt like there was a hole in my summer wardrobe, and it's the hole that sweater dresses fill in my winter wardrobe. I love being able to just throw on a chic looking but effortless, both effortless looking and actually legitimately effortless piece. I'm really into that kind of silhouette. I particularly love the one that I purchased from the Etsy seller because of its print. It's a rich, weird botanical print on top of a deep chocolate brown linen background, and it has some flowers and I think birds, but it also has stick bugs. It's like an illustrated botanical print that includes stick bugs. It's super weird. It's super weird and I really like it. And it has red accents, which makes it amazing for wearing with a red lip, as I did in that video. It was $40.90. So it was pretty much just $40, which was amazing. I think I got it on sale. All right, let's talk about makeup. I actually have something rather depressing to report, which is that I think I might be going to return one of the makeup products that I bought. But I bought a concealer and I'm definitely not returning that. So I had these two, I've talked about these two makeup items already because I talked about them in my video about the Sephora sale, because they are the two things that were in my cart for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I had sampled both of them. I had gotten little sample pots. I had made, I thought, absolute positive sure that I truly wanted to buy both of them. So I talked about this Makeup Forever HD Ultra HD light capturing self-setting concealer. I bought it in the shade Pearl, which is not the lightest shade. The lightest shade worked for me, but I was angling for a concealer that doesn't make me look made up in the least, like something that's extremely, extremely natural on me. And even though the light shade worked with my skin, it just made me look a little bit more made up because it highlighted my under eyes more. And that's pretty shocking. Usually the lightest shade in a concealer range is actually too dark for me and it kind of draws my face down. So most concealer formulas I can't use because there just isn't a shade that works for me. So it's pretty amazing. This checked all my boxes. The color was light enough. It's extremely skin-like and natural. It's almost serum-y, but the coverage is pretty good. And I didn't want super full cakey coverage, but it's really quite good coverage. It's just because of that serum-y texture, you can really, really blend it out, especially with your fingers. And then it doesn't need to be set. I think the reviews that I've watched of this, people who are doing like full face of Instagram makeup and really laying it on thick, like Shape Tape style, to test whether or not its claims of being self-setting are real, everyone has been like, no, it's creasing, you actually do have to set it. But I'm not someone who puts concealer up under my eyes where I have creases. I don't put concealer into those creases. I just kind of use it down here and I use it to take care of redness on my chin. So the way I use it, a very thin sheared out layer on these planes of my face, it definitely doesn't need to be set with a powder. I think if you were gonna really cake it up under your eye all the way up to your lash line where everyone has natural creases, then maybe the claim of it being self-setting and not needing to be set with a powder doesn't extend to cover that situation. Or so the reviews seem to state. But for me, it's absolutely perfect. It wouldn't have worked for me to get a concealer that stays sort of emollient. Like several of you recommended the one from RMS Beauty and the Glossy Stretch Concealer. Those are really lovely, and that's definitely the look that I was going for, but they're made with coconut oil. It's like pigment mixed with coconut oil and a couple of other things. And coconut oil, over time, it clogs my pores. And I learned it the hard way with the Stretch Concealer. When that product first released, I bought it and I went through almost a whole pot, and I ended up with basically a beard of closed comedones, like just little under the skin bumps. And it took a really long time and a couple of facials actually to get all of those extracted and get my skin to be smooth again. This is the one that has severely disappointed me. And it's not the product's fault, it's my fault. It's the fault of my taste. So it's the Bobbi Brown, what is it called? Crushed Liquid Lip in Haute Cocoa. And I thought that I had made absolute sure that this product would work for me because I got them to scrape some of it into a little sample pot and then I used it for a whole week. But I think that because it was scraped in a little sample pot, I was using my finger, so I was applying a relatively thin layer and I was able to use my finger to kind of shape and spread it out. When I apply this straight from the wand, it's either too thick and shiny and it makes a really harsh line that's really dark and sort of streaky and hard to get an even coverage, or then I go in with my finger and I shear it out like I did when it was in the pot, and then it's like it shears away so much that it's like, why did I even put it on? And when I go to wear it, when I reach for it, my experience of applying it is ping-ponging back and forth between those two things. Like, 5 or 6 times. So I go in, I put it on with the wand, I'm like, oh, it's messy, it's too much, it's too dark. Then I go in and I'm fixing it, and then I fix it so much that it's like gone, and then I'm like, oh, I can't even see it anymore. So then I go back in with the wand and I put more on, and then I'm like, oh, it's too dark, it's streaky, it's uneven. I go with my finger and I try to like clean it up and make it work, and then by the time I'm done cleaning it up and making it work, it just looks like a chapstick. And it's driving me bananas because in theory, I really love the color, and I really, really love the Bobbi Brown crushed lip color in the bullet. And so I think I was enthusiastically transferring my love of that product to this product and just assuming that it would be formulaically as perfect for me. And it turns out that formulaically, it is just not for me at all. So I think that this might be the first and hopefully the only thing that I actually return that I bought with my beauty budget. And I've gone back and forth a little bit about whether I want to return it. The reason I am going to return it, the reasons are two. One is that it was really expensive. It was like almost $30. I think it's $28, $30. And for me with my budget, that's a big bite. That's a big chunk. My lip collection is newly edited. I just did a declutter. And so I've gotten to the point with this just in a few short weeks where I don't want it anymore. Like I would declutter it. And I bought it so recently. That's the other reason. I just bought it. So I feel like, I mean, I know that Sephora's return window is pretty long. Like I think you can kind of take stuff back whenever. I know that their return policy is so fluid that it's really easy to take advantage of it. And it's really easy to use it as an excuse for buying a bunch of stuff that you're not sure you want and then returning everything that you decide that you don't like. I think it's easy to use the return policy as an excuse for buying just to try. I didn't do that with this. I know that I didn't do that because I took extreme pains to try it before I bought it. And I was sure that I was going to love it. So I didn't buy it out of curiosity. I didn't buy it to just see. I didn't expect to be using the return policy as a cushion for this purchase. I fully expected that this would be one of my favorite lip products for the next 2 or 3 years. So I feel like these are the situations that a return policy is for, like that it is well used for. So the reason I'm going into detail about this is because I have made a huge change in my behavior surrounding returns. During my no-buy year, I really kind of saw the light, and at the beginning of this year, I actually purchased a few things in January with my beauty budget that I regretted buying, and I didn't return them, partly because they were relatively inexpensive. It was like $10 all told of my budget, and I didn't feel like I needed to drive to the mall, for example, to like return $10 worth of merchandise. But I also just didn't want to get in the habit of leaning on return policies and allowing the knowledge of that cushion to dilute my rigorous process of deciding what is worth buying. Until I make that return, until I actually return it, I am still counting myself as having spent the money that it costs. So these two products together cost $59 for me to buy from Sephora. And so a pretty big chunk of my budget went to that Sephora order of just 2 little items. I think I forgot to talk about how much the Aritzia tops cost too. I'm looking at my list. They were $70 together. I think the tank top with a little tie in the front was $40, and this simple white t-shirt was $30. And this is what I'm talking about when I say fewer, nicer things. I scoured the internet for the perfect, lightweight, perfectly cropped, white V-neck t-shirt. And when I found it, I was so excited that I was more than happy to spend $30 of my budget on it. It feels very, very worth it, even though it's just a simple white tee. I also know that Aritzia, compared to a lot of clothing companies, is relatively ethical, and I'm willing to pay for that. I'm willing to pay for the fact that they are transparent in their supply chain, where they source things, they check up on their factories to make sure that the workers are being treated well, etc. I probably could have found a top like this if I had just gone to the mall and gone to Forever 21, and it probably would have been $7, but I'm more than happy to buy it for $30 from Aritzia. So the other makeup product, as ashamed as I am to report that I'm returning something, the other makeup product that I bought is the one that I have the most trepidation about sharing. And it's not because of the item itself or the nature of the item. It's because of the circumstances in which I bought it. So here's what it is. It's this little trio of Cover FX shimmer veils. And I bought them because one morning I reached for this, my Cover FX shimmer veil that was a gift from Courtney, and it's in the shade Amethyst. And I love the formula so much because it dries very quickly. It shears out. It's very shimmery and glittery, kind of wet look because it's so glittery. But it shears out and then it dries and then it sticks and it doesn't crease. Even on my creasy hooded eyes, it doesn't crease all day. I also really love using this as a highlighter on my cheeks because it's like a glittery highlighter, but again, I can buff it out. It makes a really sheer translucent layer, but it dries down and it doesn't budge. It doesn't stay tacky. It's so impressive to me. And one morning I just reached for this on a whim. I put it on my eyes and I had this rush of admiration for the formula. And with that came a rush of desire to buy this product in another color. Because this color, as beautiful as it is, and as much as I'm happy to keep it and keep using it, it's a cool toned pink. And that's just at the bottom of my list of colors that I like to wear. And I remember putting it on and being like, ooh, I love this product so much. It's so me. It's so my vibes. If only it were more of an apricot color, or if only it were more of a rusty kind of copper, or if only it were a sheer champagne, I would wear it all the time. And as I poked around on the internet, I found my way to CoverFX actual website, the actual website of CoverFX. And these were on sale on the website for, I think it was $17. The set was marked down to $17 and they offer free shipping. And I just bought them. And oh, the other thing that was going on that day was I was having a bad day. That's the thing that I'm kind of ashamed to report on. When we were coming home from work, we were in the elevator down from the office and I turned to Joe and I was like,
I did something today that I haven't done since before my no-buy year.
and he was like,
what was it?
And I was like,
I bought makeup because I was having a bad day.
and he was like,
You should tell your subscribers about it.
and that's what I'm doing. So I was having a bad day. I was browsing for makeup on the internet at work because I was having a bad day. And the other thing that got me was the free shipping, which is something that I try usually to resist. I try to take time. I try to be measured. I try not to get sucked in by I try not to think of free shipping as like a perk or a reason to buy something. I try to keep my decision-making process separate. But in this case, it was just that old knee-jerk habit. The old brain was the one that pushed the button. Now, I'm not sorry that I made this purchase because I at least had enough reason on that day to know that this is a smart purchase for me. Like, I'm gonna get a lot of use out of these guys. I'm glad that I have them. I don't feel like they're taking up space. They are exactly what I would wish to have in the space that they take up, if that makes sense. I want them there more than I want there to be space there. And that's a big deal for me. So it was, in theory, a good buy, but I almost think that the fact that it was a good buy is a little bit incidental. It's like I just got lucky because it was a moment in which I allowed my old relationship with shopping to kind of rear its ugly head. I bought something as a form of retail therapy, kind of like to comfort myself, and impulsively because I was like, this product is amazing. I've got to have the other colors. Like, you know, all of those little things, all of the little things that happen to us that we're familiar with, all the little buttons that got pushed, they all just got pushed all together on the same day. And I ended up spending, with tax, $19.16 of my budget on 3 mini CoverFX shimmer veils. I'm almost done because the only other things that I bought were my 2 houseplants. And one of them's right here, and the other one is behind me, but I think it's, oh no, you can see it. I'll go point it out. I like it because it has these leaves are kind of stiff. Like it doesn't feel flimsy. It's very, it's very stiff and crunchy, and it feels hardy, and it feels like it's not going to die even if I ever get to water it. Look at this little sun bunny. Sadie, what do you think of the new plants? She loves them. So I don't know what kind of plant that is, the one that I just carried over here. Maybe some of you who know plants better than I do can tell me in the comments. The guy told me at the plant store and then I forgot. He said to water it once a week, and it has a little weird flower, or what I think what was a flower inside of it, that it's like a gray mottled long piston of a flower. He said that it was a flower. I don't know if it will flower again or what. And it has these stiff, weird roots kind of coming out at the center of it. It's a cool, I like weird plants. I like plants that have kind of weird, almost creepy shapes. And that one's definitely one of the weirdest plants that I saw that day. So I'm very pleased with it. I thought it was going to go in a little spot on top of the kitchen cabinets, but it ended up being too big. So it's there on top of the TV cabinet. This is a philodendron saloum. So I think that's what it's called. Philodendron Salloum. I think that's how it's pronounced. They tend to do pretty well even if they're not right close to a window. And that's this one. I mean, it's like 8 to 10 feet, I think, from the windows. And this is a pretty bright room, at least kind of up till here, everything behind me. It stays pretty bright for most of the day. So I think it's gonna be okay right here, but that's why I bought it. Partly because it's beautiful and it has these like beautifully shaped leaves, a little bit unusual, bright and big, and also because I think it will survive in this spot. That's the rest of my budget. Well, not the rest of my budget. I had $60.59 left. The philodendron saloum cost $40, and the other plant that I carried over here cost $30. I already had the pots. I've been toting these pots around with me from house to house. I think I acquired both of them at a thrift store in Ann Arbor years ago. And so I had these big pots already. If I hadn't had pots for them, it would have been a much bigger expenditure because pots tend to cost as much as plants, if not more. But I did spend $60 of my budget on plants. And I talked at length about why plants have to come out of my beauty budget in my check-in. So I'm not going to touch on it right now, but needless to say, my reasons are sound. They really do need to be something that I spend my beauty budget on. They're not a joint expense, they're not a household expense, and they're not something that I can get away with buying with my other money. It has to be budgeted for. So that's how I went from a starting budget of $344.25 down to a rollover of just $60.59, which is what I'm bringing with me into May. I'll go through it really quickly again. The earring, $35. The dress from the Etsy seller, $40. And the 2 Aritzia tops, $70. So that's almost $150 just on 3 items of clothing and 1 little piece of jewelry. So that would have been all of my budget except for the $50 that's for skincare if I had had only my $200 at the beginning of this month. My Sephora purchase, the 2 products were $59 together, and then the CoverFX Shimmer Veil set was about $20. So that's another $90 right there. You can start to see how it went so quickly on so few things. Then the 2 plants, $60. That brings me up to $283.66 spent last month. It seems like a lot of money. I mean, it is a lot of money. And in some ways it seems like a lot of money for very few things. But I am super happy with this month because I feel like the things that I bought have affected my life. They are going to continue to be robust, positive presences in my life going forward, even though they don't take up that much space. Like I haven't stuffed my life full of stuff this month. So that feels like a really good way to spend almost $300. It really feels like it was well spent on fewer, nicer things that affect my life strongly for the better. And that's my goal with my budget. So that is it. I am going into the current month with $260.59 in my budget. I think I am going to buy maybe 1 or 2 more pieces of clothing. But for the most part, I feel highly motivated to slow down a little bit with the shopping. Again, I talked about this in my check-in, but spending so much money all at once made me want to spend more. Buying these beautiful things, even though I think that they were mostly great choices, it's just made me want to buy more stuff. And I would really like to back off from that behavior and let those feelings sort of simmer down. All right, that really is it. I think I already said that that was it, but then that obviously wasn't it because I had more to say. But this really is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself right now so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.